Hello, and welcome back to part 6 of the September reset. Last night we were talking about household routines. I was about to say household budgeting, that's tonight. Household routines. The replay has not gone up yet because our internet went down last night. It seems to be back up now, which is lucky, but I only had 4G on my phone, and that's not going to get me a video up. So that one will go up this evening, and this one I'll probably put up straight at the same time as well, just in case whatever happened this morning happens again tomorrow. Always fun, never a dull moment with me and internet. But today we are going over household budgeting. So this is the first time I've done this as part of the proper September reset, as in the one that we do in the membership. It's always something that I check in personally in September, and I was like, this should be part of my September reset, and I was like, this should be part of everyone's September reset. So I did a little wiggle, and this is now slid into 6th place. Not priority. It's not a priority order. But I think it's nice to do some of the other bits first. But we are at that time where I feel like the household budgeting is side of things that we need to discuss. And by house, I say household and personal all kind of fall under the friends and social. Anything non-work related is what we're going to touch on here, with the exception of the fact that work often creates the income that pays for the stuff we're going to budget. We're not going to, because businesses are so different, we're not going to talk about how you budget your expenses within your business if you have one, or that kind of thing. It's literally income from your work that will factor in from that side of things. I also preface this with the fact that I am not a financial expert. My bank balance would tell you such, but it does use the same basic principles of organisation. As a ADHD brain, I am naturally really bad with money. And it's something that my brain struggles to grasp the concept of, like forward, the future concept, and a time, like we have terrible time blindness and things, and all of that translates into ADHD brains not tending to be great with money. It needs to be something we've actively learnt, and we've actually put strategies and things in place. So all those famous very rich ADHD brains out there were very lucky to have had good financial education at some point somehow, whether it was through a book or sheer damn luck or a good parenting, whatever it was. It does need to very much be a natural, an active pursuit of the knowledge to do that. Whereas some people they're just naturally like, well, I'm going to have to pay for this bill at the end of the month, so of course I'm going to have to, like, they get that there is a future that is going to require finances, and some brains just do not get that. Like, it's just the idea that tomorrow it's just feels very fake and not real, and so it doesn't matter. So having a strong budgeting system in place is very, very key. Also, if you've got goals for things that you'd like to save up for, it's rare that we can all instantly afford everything we want, even if you're not very materialistic. I'm quite minimal, and there's most things I can tend to find for free. I like finding things for free, and there's always a deal to be had. But still, I think even at the height of any, I've had a couple of pretty successful businesses, and even at the height of those, there was always something I wanted that I had to save up for, that I couldn't instantly afford, be it a computer or an overpriced laptop or a car or something like that. There's always something that's going to take a little bit of effort for the majority of people that aren't living in magical billionaire land. So having an idea of what you've got coming in, your basic income going out, etc., and what you want to be saving for. Also understanding what your bare bones budget would look like, so that in an ideal world you can look at getting a year ahead of your bare bones budget. Now, people used to say 6 months, didn't they? You just want 6 months backup. But since things like pandemic, we've all kind of learned that we need a little bit more of a backup. But we don't necessarily need to have a backup that could cover everything as it is now. we want to be looking at what our bare bones backup is, and what could we, if we needed to, get everything down to. And that includes things that we are like contracted into. So say you've got rent that you're contracted into for 24 months, you couldn't reduce your rent as part of reducing your bare bones income down. It needs to be bare bones for where you are at this sort of given moment. And yes, next month you'd only have 23 months, but we're not going to recalculate that every month. That's just a bit ridiculous. But every sort of six to 12 months, relook at your bare bones. And it's also good to have an idea of what your bare bones is for when you are committing to other things. And so if you think, oh great, I've got this wonderful income now, I'm going to remortgage and have a bigger mortgage and free up some income, or I'm going to start rent a bigger place, or I'm going to rent a studio for work, or whatever it is that you want to do, you are committing to a longer term commitment. You can look at your bare bones budget and see and be like, well, I've got a bare bones budget, I've got 8 months backed up. If I commit to this 24-month thing, suddenly I've only got 4 months back up. Am I willing to take? And you might be like, yes, actually it's worth it. But it's quite handy to be able to look at those longer term commitments in that way, because particularly when you're like me, you look at them and think, oh, it's only such and such a thing, £1 per month. But actually, how long does that last, and how does that impact all the other bits and pieces you've got going on? So that's sort of a rough overview of what we're looking at today. And first and foremost is thinking about how, like we did with the to-do list, is how you currently track your income and your expenses, and what of that system you do and don't like. Is it that you have receipts in a little pocket and then you do it all at the end of the month, and you like that you keep the paper receipts, but actually you really don't like that you do it at the end of the month, because then it feels like so much stuff, you'd rather do it. Maybe you're an everyday person, or you're an every week person. There's usually pluses and minuses between how we do things. If you're not tracking anything, the plus is that you get to live in ignorant bliss, and it's wonderful. So you might be thinking, actually, that's great. I like to not worry about it too much, in which case you know that you need to start having more savings put away so that you don't have to worry about it, but you're not going to end up in the poo. So you're like, ended up in the poo. It's not the fun in the pool. Don't know why that needed that accent, but apparently it did in my head. Remember to drink yesterday. I had a terrible dry throat at the end of yesterday's one. So yeah, thinking about how do you do it at the moment? How do you track your income? Do you just get that payslip email through and then it goes off into the oblivion and you've no idea whether it's coming through correct? Because you can be paid correctly by an employer for 5 years and then something gets mucked up. And they're also very not so quick to like check things, or if they've overpaid you, they're very quick to get it back and things. So it's good to keep an eye on that, keep an eye that the income's coming in correctly, whether it's employee or so I've got things like my book on Amazon. I've got an email that said something's delinked with my account, so it can't pay me when I've got any royalties from it at the moment. And I need to go in and update that. But if I wasn't keeping an eye on my income, I wouldn't have gone, hang on a minute, I've had 2 months where I've had no royalties coming through, and the odd 1 month, but there's usually a little bit trickling through because from some country, and there's also a massive delay in, you get them like 3-4 months after a book's been purchased. So keeping an eye on the income coming in, whether it's your own or coming from an employee, is also quite useful. So having that kind of tracking system. For me, I use Excel. There are fancy apps and complicated apps, but I want it to look like how I want it to look. So I personally use Excel. It doesn't mean that that's wrong or right. This is where I said I would check, and I haven't. So I'm going to check now that I have put this onto the website, the membership. Where am I going? So there should be a copy of the template that I use. And I said, not a financial advisor, it's just for like inspiration. inspiration to give you an idea, so you can copy it and change it, or you can look at it and go, actually, yeah, I'd rather use an app system, or I'd rather use pen and paper. If you want to have a pen and paper notebook for something like this, then go for it. I think this is one of those ones where there is bonus to the digital side, but it's not like a digital calendar where I'm like, the digital massively outweighs it. You might be like, actually, I'm more comfortable. I'd like to sit there and do some pen and paper work. Pencil and paper, always nice to do. So let me just check it's up and what it's titled, because I did upload it a while ago, so I have a blank moment. It's probably literally something like budgeting templates, normally something fairly obvious. Or it's not going to be there, and then I'll be like, okay, cool, we need to get that up. I'd have thought I'd have put it in planning, time management and planning, and date here too. So there we go. I better get that. Another page. No. Cool. I will get that up in a moment. I won't tell you to go and look at it now. It's not there. I can bring up Google Drive instead and that screen. Ooh. One second. Please bear with. And it opens, and I'll bring it up on the screen share. There you go. It's there. It's there. Just making sure I'm not bringing up mine, and I'm bringing up the actual one that's on, and I want to screen share, and I want to share. Here we go. Here we go. So I can actually see what I'm reading on. So mine's quite simple. I like to split mine by months, and so I have month tabs along the bottom, and then I literally split it into outgoings and income. I try to keep it quite simple. And I've got little categories that I've set up. This is about as fancy as my Excel ability gets, being able to set up these little drop down lists. It makes me feel very, very cool. But that's my limit. The odd sum, like adding up different numbers or something divided by something, I can do, but this drop down list is my creme de la creme. So that I've got it in categories, and that might feel like a lot of categories to you. It might not represent what's important to you. It's having like the key areas in there. So you work, partner work, you might not have partners essentials that you have to factor in, or child things. You might have had a particular hobby that's costs you lots of money, particular hobby that costs you lots of money, and that you've often got expenses going out for, that you want to have a category for. And so obviously those can be added and tweaked as required. But I will literally just put the date. So yeah, obviously made this a while, so it probably is uploaded somewhere. I just seem to not be able to find it, so I need to make it more obvious. So I'll just put the date in for the month. Obviously these are all going to be September ones because it's the September tab. I'll put the item in, I'll put it in its category, and I'll add the expense. And then it doesn't matter if I've put them out of order, because you can obviously with Excel you can highlight and resort the columns and things. So I can sort them by date, I can then sort them by category. So for me, when I do need to do my work expenses, I can sort by category and put all my work things grouped together so that I can see them, and then just move those over onto my work on budgeting and things. But as I said, we're not focusing on work budgeting. And then income, be it that gifted, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Someone just gifted you £75. Couldn't think of any other examples to put in there. But yeah, money made a vintage, salary, whatever it is, and break it up into there. And I did for a while have categories set up on there, but I tended to find it was just one of each month. Maybe I might have like 2 or 3 vintages on a good month, but otherwise it was just easier to type in the source so that I could stay more specific. But that's kind of up to you. So if you did have having said I'm not going to talk about business finances, but so if you have your own business and you had multiple income streams, so repeatedly throughout the month you would earn income from your book, from repeatedly you would earn income from having guest features in magazines, and repeatedly you would have client money being paid in, and you wanted to label them just client income or one-to-one income, then you might look at having categories in that. But again, it's about tailoring it so it feels simple and easy for you, and what will work best for you, and also what you need for any filing and things that you do. So if you do need to file expenses or whatever at any point, making sure that you've got it as simple as possible for helping future you out. We like helping future you out. And I would also have this page, and again, this is what works for me based on my needs and our family's needs and how my brain processes. So it's about creating the one that will work for you. And this is your repeat payments. So it's understanding your daily, anything but basically repeat. So your daily, so up here, I've actually clustered mine together. So I've got any daily expenses up here, any weekly between these two pink lines, not very much that happens weekly, food shop. Wish I had that much in my food shop, that'd be nice. Monthly, anything that comes out monthly. I used to have some bi-monthly, so I thought I'd put that in as an example at the moment. You get termly like things, so if you maybe choir fees might be a termly thing that you have to pay for on repeat, so maybe instead of bi-monthly, you put termly in, or you choose to break it down into a monthly one if you prefer to do that. It's about, I think that one, if you are living a little bit more, say, paycheck to paycheck, then it might be easier to have the termly in there, because you're like, okay, I've got that bit of time to save up for it. If you're trying to make sure you're staying ahead of it, then having it as a monthly expense gives you an idea of how much money every month you need to be earning to make sure that the future you is covered. So it depends on how you are living at the moment or how you want to be living finance wise. 6 monthly, so we used to have a couple of other bits in there, 6 monthly for us, but for example, I just put dentist. It's something we're meant to do every 6 months, isn't it? It's blooming expensive. By the time, then they always tell you need the hygienist, so I don't know why they don't just include that in the appointment anyway. Yearly and then bi-yearly, and just because I know I happen to have some bi-yearly, so you might be like, actually I can just do daily, weekly, monthly and yearly. Those are your standard ones, but there are, so put a couple more examples in there as well. Knowing what they are, knowing what category they fall under, I like that, you might not care. When they're due, so which day of the month, that's what this one is. So these are first of the month ones, that's on the 15th of the month, so you've got an idea of when they're due. When these ones are coming up, so bi-monthly, next one's November, because you know you paid in September, for example. 6 monthly, for some reason I obviously didn't put one in there. Should we give it a thing? We're going to go with October. Oh, we're not going to spell October correctly. October. October, you know that's coming up in October. Your yearly ones you can do maybe as more of a specific date, and then bi-yearly, exactly. And then this is if you've got any outstanding balances. This is quite a, I was about to say sensitive one. No, we have debt. People have debt. It's fine. And it's not fine. It would be nice if we did just like the government just write it all off one day for us, but they've got enough of their own, haven't they? So if you've got an outstanding balance, so for example on the credit card, your monthly cost is your minimum payment of £100, for example. But it's also good to have there that you've actually got an outstanding balance of this. So when you're looking at it, you think actually overall per month, it's not too bad. Like it doesn't matter too much. Like so down here, mine actually calculates. Crikey, that's a long one, isn't it? My monthly minimum total. If I looked at that and went, oh, well, I make £7,000 a month, I could suddenly go, well, I might as well pay that off. Instead of just why am I paying just £100? I might as well pay that off. So if any of these are outstanding, and outstanding doesn't necessarily mean that they're like overdue, so things like your I think insurance. Quite often you'll be paying a little bit more if you're paying monthly on your insurance. So on your insurance, I would have my monthly expense in there, but then I'd also put my outstanding there. And then if I can look and go, actually, I've got my monthly income up above my minimum total, it would be better to go back to my insurance company and pay it off, and not be paying that little bit of interest that they sneak in there. And so that's what I mean by outstanding. And yeah, like my national insurance, I always put my national insurance as outstanding because, well, it's always going to creep up on me, isn't it? It's like I don't pay it a bit, but you can also do a separate tab. I haven't got an example on here. I feel like it was me trying to be optimistic, but I probably should put an example on here as well, of anything that is owed and having a separate debt plan, particularly if you are looking at trying to pay things down. For that, on my personal Excel sheet, I will have what the debt is. So it'll be like the Virgin credit card, or literally can't think of anything now. Mortgage bill, like a bill, the vet's bill that's really, really high. Anything like that. It's not you're not saving up for it. It's something that needs to be paid. I'd also have what interest rate it is, so you can understand what is costing you the most. Any details of special offers. So say you've got a credit card that's got 12 months interest free, have that written down, but then also be aware that from 12 months onwards, what the percentage of interest will be, so you can work out, is it better to me paying off a higher percentage credit card now, or do I need to get it cleared by the 12 months, because actually the percentage it will go on to is way worse than the highest thing I've got now. But it's just sort of having a clear picture and understanding where you are, and in the same way of grouping, like it's that grouping like with like, in the same way that you have when you are clearing out a cupboard, just put like with like items together, so you have a clearer picture of what's happening with your things and what's happening with your money. I'm just going to read the question. Amazing, Christina. Yes, no, that's brilliant. That's the dream. You're living the dream, basically. So you could have choose to have another Excel sheet where you are tracking those if you went down this route. So you'd have your months if you choose to track monthly. It seems like a norm. It's kind of that average thing. It's not too often, but it gives you a bit of control. Things don't tend to creep up, and a lot of us, the majority of our bills tend to be monthly in life. So your monthlies, what your repeat payments are, so you know your monthly minimums, and this is what I use to calculate my bare bones as well. And then you can have another Excel sheet where you can track and things like ISAs, so you understand, making sure that you're maxing out how much you can put in certain ISAs and things. But again, as I said, not a financial expert by any means, but I can organize anything. I know how to organize anything and everything. Taken a long time to work out, so got some along the way. Yeah, I think it's there's so much of life that it's just like fail fast. Just do it. Stop. Don't let it put you in freeze mode because you're worried about doing it wrong. You might as well just do it wrong and then fix it, kind of thing. Obviously, there are a few exceptions like brain surgery, rocket science. It's always worth trying to get those right the first time. But setting up a system to track your income, if the columns don't work quite, if you've made it a little bit too complicated and actually, oh, now I'm not keeping up with it, I need to reduce it down, you can just reduce it down at a later date. But it's having that clear understanding of where everything is. And I think it's once you've collected all this information together, it makes, when you come to the September reset, that a little bit easier, because it's more about just reviewing it and thinking, are there any things that you want to tweak? For example, if you were looking and saying, okay, so I was only paying my minimum payment of £100, my monthly total is this, however, I now know I can bring that up. Let's increase that monthly total in my regular bills. But you can always go back to it and adjust it as you need to, when you hit that bare bones. You could also create a think I do have on mine a repeat payments bare bones sheet. So I have it literally as a separate sheet. So I created my repeat payments and then I duplicated it. And I think you can literally just do that down here, can't you? Duplicated it. And created a bare bones version. So what on this list could I get out of if I needed to? Dentist, I mean, not ideal, but in a crisis, could skip the dentist. I'm quite lucky with my teeth, they're pretty good. If you have loads and loads of problems with your teeth, that might not be something you can skip. Like bare bones, how quickly can I get out of the subscription to daughter's gymnastics club or whatever it will be? And it turns out there are subscriptions you can get out of faster if there's financial issues. Like, often people are more understanding, but it's always nice to have a clear idea of where your liabilities lie, because obviously if you pull out of one of your liabilities and it's a smaller independent business and things, it's not ideal. It happens, and we all, as anyone with a business, does have to build that in, but it's nice not to. So having a clear idea of what your bare bones is and building it up. But reaching for the stars, I would love to have 12-month buffer for my bare bones. That is my dream after the credit cards are gone. It's been a credit card heavy couple of years. Hey ho, never mind. But having I know personally that I like sticking my head in the sand with my finances, that I would rather not know. So for me, having that bigger buffer takes away some of that additional stress, and it gives me more of an incentive. Knowing that I don't like doing my finances gives me even more of an incentive to work harder to make sure I've got that buffer, so that I kind of know I don't need to worry so much, as long as I'm not being frivolous and crazy and sticking roughly with my budget. I don't need to track every penny if I've got a bit more of a buffer. Whereas when I haven't got a buffer, unfortunately, I do need to be a bit more. And again, if you've got kind of spending shopaholic habits and things, happens to the best of us. I think it is actually qualified as a mental illness as well now. So it's nothing to be ashamed of, but getting hold of the numbers and understanding the numbers of where you are and where you would like to be can help with that as well. So there's there's so many benefits to being organized. We love being organized. So stop the share on that one so I can bring back my pointless time. So I will, I'm sure I had, sorry, very sorry, but I will make sure that when I upload the 2 videos that I put that in there as well. Interesting. I think we've talked a lot about having our bare bones. Oh, is there anything you would like to do? So we talked about keeping a track of your savings, but it's a great time as part of the September reset to think about anything that you would like to be saving for. I think it can also be quite nice to have a couple of things, even when like paying off debt might be the first thing you're saving for. But what is something nice underneath that you'd like saving for? Because again, that gives the extra incentive. Like, I want to get the card cleared so I can start saving up for XYZ. Like, one of the things to say to my daughter when she's like, oh, I want this in the shop, I want that in the shop, and usually quite good. So I'll wait for Father Christmas or things like that. But I can't get those biscuits instead, Mummy. And it's like, oh, but what are we saving up for? And our answer is a puppy. Now, the puppy is a long way off, because Mummy knows that the credit card needs to be paid for first and then the puppy, but I'm not going to talk to her about that yet. She's 36. But saying to her, oh, isn't the puppy more important? And she'll be like, oh yes, actually the puppy's more important. Like, so you go. I'm terrible with money, but she's much better, because she sure knows the trick is to be saving for a dog. So having those nice things can make it a little bit less stressful. I personally also respond really well to having financial challenges, not the negative kind. So this was meant to be our second no spend year, but with the move, it was just one too many things to be doing. But we did a no spend year last year. It was in the paper and stuff of how much we'd saved and reduced our income down by and things like that. And I don't think I'd found that anywhere near as interesting if I hadn't made it into a challenge and set rules to it. And yes, I do have a video on my YouTube about doing that. That's just like a public video. Um, but having the rules and making it a challenge and things like that for me was a lot more fun. So if you know and understand how you deal with money and your sort of money mindset, your approach to it, you can tailor how you do your monthly budget. You might just be like, I just need a little tracking system. I just want to have a little better idea of where I spend money. Or you might be going, actually, I want to really reinvent my relationship with money, and through having a bit more of an idea of where I am and what I want to save for, in which case you might be going into a more detailed budget. But as always, with anything I ever talk about, it's about what works for you as a person and what provides you what you need, like what's going to give you the support to achieve what you want to achieve and live the life that you want to live, however that may be. I think the majority of people want financial security, but financial security looks very different for different people. Like for some people that's having no mortgage, for other people it's financial security is being able to afford a mortgage. Like it's the only one I can think of right now, but obviously loads of different examples. When you are looking at your system, final points on, said we'd run over tonight, didn't I? I said I'd start quickly because it's going to be a long one. And when you were looking at your system, like we did with last night, well, you won't know because I haven't put the replay up yet. We talked about last night with the routine and who needs to have access to it is, again, consider that with who needs to have access to your financial system. So if you have an assistant that needs to be able to update it, or a partner or an accountant, that might impact what system you choose to use. So for example, certain apps, I know some accountants will have connections to certain apps, so they'll ask you to use a certain app for your tracking because they can also access it, or you can access it from both sides. Think like a shared file in a Google Drive. You might choose to use a shared file. Our Excel tracker is in a shared folder that we both have access to, my partners, we can both update it. And who else needs to be able to see what's going on with them? What does it need to be able to do for you? So me, shared Excel sheet, it can do the basic sums, I can do the categories I need. If I wanted to, I could create a graph from it, but I can't remember how to do that because that was learned that at school a long time ago. But it can do everything I and my family needed to do. We talked about the categories already, didn't we? And thinking about what's going to trigger you to update it. So you can create this wonderful system. You can put all the facts and figures as they stand today, but what's going to trigger you to update it? Now this could be that you're like, well, I'm going to have a small box, and when that small box is full of receipts, that's going to be my trigger. For me, I will then just squish the box down more. So I actually have an alarm in my calendar that reminds me to do it. Have that alarm in your calendar. Is it something that you need to do monthly? Is it something to do weekly? Maybe while you're trying to get into it and get a bit more on top of it and build it up and make sure it's correct that you're going to go for weekly. And you could tag it onto doing like your weekly review. You could tag it onto there, adding in, doing a little bit, have a little section on the end of weekly review, say I'm going to update all my financial bits. Then it just depends on where you are with money now and what you're trying to get out of it. I want to get ours back to, daily seems great, but yeah, unfortunately my routine in life wouldn't allow for daily, but weekly, I want to get mine to weekly, whereas we used to do monthly. It'd be nice to have an earlier overview, an earlier insight into where things are each month. So I've decided to shift mine. But again, what serves you, what works for you, is what's important. So it's also something that when you go back over your household routine, that you add in financial tracking, because unfortunately, as horrible and annoying as it is, money does have a massive impact on everything that we do. So once you do yesterday's video, make sure you're adding in a point where you are going to do your financial tracking, your financial reviewing. And it could be that you do your income once a month and you do your expenses weekly. You could have sort of split it that way. It could be that you do a debt review. You decide, I'm going to do, right, I've got all these cards, I just want to pay, I'm going to pay my minimum payments every month. And then I'm going to do a debt review every 3 months and pay chunks off then. So every 3 months I'll go in and do an additional chunk, or every 6 months I'll go in and do an additional chunk, or try to, or see if I can get a better deal somewhere else. When it comes to interest rates or credit or savings or anything like that, what's his name? Money expert guy, moneysavingexpert.com, I think, is usually pretty good for its source, which is usually pretty reliable and things. But I know absolutely nothing about that, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just going to say go look for the information elsewhere. But quite often we don't know what we don't know until we delve into the world and see if we can find out a bit more on something. So if there's something that's causing you stress, try and gain some more information on it, and hopefully within the understanding, you're never going to be worse off, but understanding more how you can improve the situation. So even if it's not something you're able to do right now, you say, oh, actually they want you to get another card to transfer it over, but I'm not eligible for another card and thing. But at least you know it's there. So maybe after you've been at your new job with a higher salary, or you've got more wage slips under your belt, you might actually be able to go back and do that thing. So if it's causing you worry, have some action steps, even if it's not something you can maybe action right now, but knowing what the action steps are so you can move forward towards that. And just got one in the chat, so I'm just going to pop that back up. Check. Yeah, saving by not spending is very powerful. And I'm very much an all or nothing person, so I find it quite hard to stick to a medium budget, but I'm really good to stick to like a zero budget, like spend nothing. Suddenly a lot easier than spending a little bit. But know thyself, and then make the adjustments accordingly. I can hear a little one wants me, so I am going to go and say goodnight to her. And we are, like I said, I'll get this one and last one's uploaded tonight, and then we are back tomorrow for seasonal switch up. So all the seasonal decluttering and packing up and prepping for things coming out and things going away, with the seasonal switching around and things that we need to prep around seasonal switch up. We move into autumn. Still feels very beautifully summery. It's lovely. But planning ahead, we like to plan ahead. Drop me a message with any questions, and I will see you both tomorrow, hopefully. So I can't do it right. Is it choir rehearsal tomorrow? We have Claire at choir say, oh, exciting. And new things being installed. So singing like that, yeah, singing. Excellent. I've got a new boiler being installed on Thursday. Can you come and sing for that? Sing for the boiler, sing for the heat and the insulation. Although they turned around and said I need to empty the loft, and I'm like, no, not going to happen. I'm going to empty half of it to the other side, and then while they're still working, I'll move it across once they want to do the other bit. Anyway, I'll stop wittering on, and I will see you all soon. Have a lovely evening. Ta-ta for now.